Welcome to Mama's Legacies, a channel where family stories come alive. Not just the sweet memories, but also the hidden truths. Here you'll hear tales of love, cruelty, betrayal, and resilience, because every legacy carries lessons. These stories may be raw, but they are real, and they remind us that truth has the power to heal. She thought she met the love of her life when Jim accidentally spilled his drink on her. But what seemed like fate was a setup 10 years in the making. Sarah had no idea Jim was the same man whose loan she'd denied a decade earlier, a rejection that destroyed his business and ignited a quiet obsession. Now, disguised as her perfect husband, Jim was back to destroy everything she cared about: her career, her family, and even her daughter's trust. But the truth has a way of surfacing, and this time it came at a deadly price. Now That I Have Your Attention Here is a story of revenge 10 years in the making. The restaurant was the kind that hummed with quiet elegance. Soft candlelight flickered on polished tabletops, the scent of fresh bread baking weaving through the air. A baby grand piano in the corner breathed out slow jazz, each note floating like silk across the room. Crystal chandeliers gleamed above, their light catching on the glassware and silver like stardust. She sat alone at the bar, poised but weary. Her coat was neatly folded over the back of her stool, and her eyes tired but alert as she waited to be seated. A table for one, not by preference, but by necessity. She was out for the evening just to unwind after a difficult day at work, a rare sliver of time for herself. She wore a suit jacket, her work uniform from the bank, where she is a branch manager. Then it happened. A gentleman, mid-40s, sharply dressed in a gray suit, turned too quickly, his glass of red wine arcing from his hand like a ribbon in slow motion. The liquid splashed across her jacket. Gasps fluttered nearby. The pianist missed a note. Her eyes widened, not in anger, but disbelief. The man froze, his expression stricken. "Oh, God, I am so sorry," he said, already reaching for a napkin. "I didn't see. Are you all right?" She looked down at her jacket, then up at him. His panic, his genuine regret etched across his face. She blinked, then laughed. "It's just a jacket," she said gently, taking the napkin from his trembling hand. He relaxed, but only slightly. "Please, let me pay for cleaning, or at least let me buy you dinner." She paused, assessing him, not just the offer, but the man. His voice didn't sound like pity. It sounded like someone not used to making mistakes, someone trying to make it right. "I was just waiting for a table," she said, tilting her head, a small smile forming. "But I suppose company wouldn't hurt." And just like that, the air shifted. The music resumed. Conversations picked up again. But something small and significant had cracked open in the middle of that serene restaurant, a thread of connection, tangled in red wine and unexpected timing. And that is how Sarah met Jim. They exchanged numbers. What Sarah doesn't know, Jim recognized her the moment he saw her. This was no accident. 10 years ago, Sarah, then a loan officer at Aqua Credit Union, had denied Jim a business loan after spotting irregularities in his paperwork. That denial cost him a lucrative deal, and his pride. He swore revenge. They talked about things people usually save for later: her adopted daughter, his recent heartbreak, their shared love of old movies and fresh bread. Laughter came easier than either of them expected. One date became two, then a weekend trip to the coast, then a routine, a rhythm neither had planned, but both fell into like gravity. He brought her coffee in the mornings, learning how she liked it. She reminded him how to slow down, how to leave space for silence without discomfort. It was the kind of whirlwind romance people warn you about, but theirs was anchored in dishonesty. There were tears and doubts and long conversations on rain-slicked porches, but there was also joy, loud and unapologetic. 3 months later, under the same chandelier where they'd first met, they were married in a quiet ceremony after hours. No grand gestures, just close friends, soft jazz, and a single table dressed for three. The bartender, who had witnessed it all from the start, raised his glass from across the room. "To spilled wine and second chances," he toasted. And just like that, the story she never expected to live became the life she never wanted to leave, or so she thought. Jim makes himself the perfect gentleman, patient, romantic, reliable. Jim studies her every move, her job, her habits, her adopted daughter Mary, and her assistant Christine. On the surface, he's the ideal husband. Behind the scenes, he's assembling a plan to dismantle her life piece by piece. Jim befriends Mary, playing the role of the supportive stepfather. He learns Mary was adopted at birth. Gently, but persistently, he plants the seed. Don't you ever wonder who your real mother is? Maybe she's looking for you. He offers to help Mary search. Soon, Mary's spending hours online, obsessed with her birth mother. The once close bond between Sarah and Mary begins to crack. Mary becomes defiant, accusing Sarah of hiding things. Jim feeds it. Maybe she didn't want you to know the truth. At the bank where Sarah now works as a branch manager, Jim gets close to her assistant, Christine, pretending to be a friendly confidant. He convinces Christine that Sarah doesn't value her and that she deserves more money. Then, with calculated precision, he encourages her to borrow funds using Sarah's login credentials, just to teach her boss a lesson. When money starts disappearing, all the evidence points directly to Sarah. Sensing something isn't right, Sarah hires a private investigator, Martin Brown. He begins to dig into Jim's past. It doesn't take long before Martin discovers the truth. Jim is not who he claims to be. His real name, his old records, and the connection to the loan denial surface. Martin realizes this was a revenge plot years in the making. Jim's real name is Donald Schneider, but before Martin can reach Sarah with the evidence, Jim intercepts him. In a secluded parking lot, a single shot silences Martin forever. Christine learned of Martin's death and decided to confess to Sarah. Before she could get through to Sarah, she was found dead in her car in the underground garage. With Martin gone and Christine gone, Sarah remains in the dark. Jim comforts her, pretending to be worried about her stress at work and Mary's behavior. Meanwhile, the fraud investigation closes in. Mary, growing ever more rebellious, announces she's found her birth mother, Rita, who lives out of state. Against Sarah's rules, she sneaks off to a concert with Rita on a school night. Sarah panics when the school calls. Mary never showed up for class. Jim acts concerned but secretly smiles. Every step of his plan is working. After the concert, Rita contacts Sarah, confused about the hostility between mother and daughter. Rita admits Jim had called her weeks earlier and paid her $5,000 to pretend to me Mary's birth mom and helping Mary reconnect. That's when Sarah's alarm bells explode. She calls the police to report Martin missing, and soon his car is found abandoned. The pieces begin to click. Sarah broke into Martin's office one late night and finds a file on Jim with her loan officer's signature from 10 years ago, the denial letter and the true identity of Jim. She was in total shock. She realizes her husband isn't her soulmate. He's her stalker. When Jim returns home, Sarah confronts him. The calm mask falls away. "You took everything from me," she says. Jim smirks. "No, Sarah. I'm just taking back what you took from me." Police sirens cut the moment short. They've connected Jim to Christine's and Martin's deaths and the internal bank fraud. Jim runs, but Mary, seeing everything, steps in front of her mother protectively for the first time. Jim is arrested. Christine sent her an email prior to her death, confesses that Jim manipulated her. Mary finally understands how deeply he lied to all of them. She apologizes to Sarah, broken but wiser. Together, mother and daughter start therapy and begin rebuilding their relationship. In her office, Sarah rehangs her old credit union plaque, the one from the year she denied the loan. She stares at it, whispering, "Some debts collect themselves." He spent 10 years plotting revenge. She spent 10 months believing in love. In the end, his lies unraveled, and what he destroyed only made her stronger. If you enjoyed this story from Mama's Legacies and want more tales of love, betrayal, and redemption, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more powerful stories to life, each one reminding us that even in darkness, truth and courage always find their way to the light.